All right. Well, hey, gang. It's that time of day and of the month
It sure
for
is.
for the Run Zero Hour.
Woo!
And yes, whoop, whoop. And I am very excited to be here today. We're recording this in June of 2026. If you are from the ineffable future, uh, this is how we looked back then.
Before the cybernetic implants.
Right, right, right. And I am Tod Beardsley. I'm Vice President of Security Research here at runZero. I am joined by Bri Cluck,
Hello!
our babyest research engineer. Bri-
Long time guest, first time employee.
That's right. Super stoked to have Bree around. Bree has been slaving away in the fingerprint and vuln check mines here at runZero. And if you use runZero, you're already benefiting from her work because she's been shipping like crazy. Um, and then today we have, next slide, please, our very special guest, Stephen.
Hi, Stephen.
Hello.
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 Next slide, please. So Stephen says here, according to my
Yeah.
notes, that you're the EPSS SIG co-chair. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a good that means I'm relatively involved in
I'd
the
say.
community of EPSS, right? I mean that's what it is. We're trying to we have regular meetings and we just talk about all things vulnerability exploitation and the model and all the fun stuff that goes along with that. So
Mhm.
yeah.
That's great. For the people watching from home who maybe aren't as familiar as us, what does EPSS stand for and what does it actually do?
Yeah, it's the exploit prediction scoring system.
Nice.
It's a machine learning model that ingests vulnerability data. So anything with a CVE, anything related to that CVE, such as exploit code or things in the news or Kev lists or any other feature that is being, engineered or publicly available or even privately available about CVEs into a machine learning model, which is it's using the XGBoost algorithm and producing a calibrated probability of exploitation in the next 30 days for that CVE between 0 and 1. So it's a cool little machine learning model that we're all trying to understand, and we're on the fifth version now. So
That
Awesome.
is true. If you want to pop over to the next slide, unless you have anything else you want to talk about on your big dumb face slide here, Stephen.
yeah, this is what I used to look like before I um, went insane. So anyway, that's all.
Cool. Great show. Bree, can you go to the next slide, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you. Yes, so exactly. As alluded to, we're going to be talking about EPSS today. Stephen is being humble. He is, in fact, the co-chair along with Jay Jacobs, who's also been on the show once or twice. Depends on how you count. But this is the first time for you, Stephen, so I'm glad to have collected the pair. Uh,
Yeah.
Steven's super nice guy, very knowledgeable about EPSS from my interactions with him. I hang out as well on the in the SIG. I tend to go to the Friday meetings. Maybe 60% of the time, 70% of the time.
Yeah.
And it's a really good time. It's one of those spaces that's somewhat rarefied for people who are really, really, really into observing, counting, doing analysis on vulnerabilities, right?
Yeah.
Specifically, and kind of
Yeah,
across the whole landscape there. So if you want to pop to the next slide, Bree, I think we
sure.
can just like turn. No, no,
Oh no.
no, back it up, back it up. But that's okay. Don't worry about it. The let's just take the slides down for now.
Sure.
The changes in V5 um, from a user perspective, I don't think many people would notice. Is that
No.
accurate?
That's relatively accurate. There's been some analysis done by our good friend Jerry Gamblin about the differences between version 4 and version 5 from the beta scores, and they're the delta is relatively trivial, I think, which is I think a good thing. So we won't see a lot of scores shift. Um,
Mhm.
and I say that today on June 17th, and
Yeah.
so we're 2 days
Well, and it's
post
been out for
release.
2 days, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. So don't come crying to me when or if that happens. But yeah, I mean, there's relatively little change in the actual scoring distribution. If anything, it's more of um, it's a different calibration method, I think. And don't ask me about what that is, but I
uh-huh.
know that
I'm definitely going to.
they have extended. Um, like the scoring between like closer to 0 and closer to 1. So like I think there's like a 99% value now instead of tapping out at like 94 or 95% from previous versions.
Okay.
Interesting.
So yeah, there is that. But yeah, then but from a user perspective, there shouldn't be much change other than being aware of what is being added or changed in the
So
actual.
so one of the features of this release, which I don't think happened ever before, was while last minute shakeouts of all the things were happening. I think we had like 3 or 4 weeks, I want to say, of beta scores being sort of published.
Yeah.
I mean, they were technically published, but they were published on GitHub.
Hmm.
And so not via the API or anything, but if you were, a super nerd like Jerry,
Yeah.
then you could go look, right, and see what the differences are. I kind of eyeballed them. We have a thing here at runZero called EPSS Pulse. And so I was like spot checking, just saying like, oh, are the differences like when cutover day happens, which was this last Monday, is it going to be an explosion of deltas,
Right.
or is it going to be just kind of business as usual? And I know that the usual advice is when EPSS for the last three upgrades, right? Like there was a bunch of movement. There were like
Hmm.
the trough between V3 and V4 was rather huge. And
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
point where like comparing scores like across that boundary was kind of meaningless.
Yeah.
Uh, but that didn't happen this time. Like there was some change.
Yeah.
It was more change than usual for a given day, all things being equal. But it was not unhandleable levels of
Right.
change, and it wasn't very dramatic.
Right.
So it
Now,
was.
oh,
Go ahead, Brie.
sure. Yeah, so I guess so I have a real quick question about this. So, um, my understanding is EPSS is you take a whole bunch of vulnerability data, you look at it for the next 30 days. There's a white paper you all published in 2022 that talked about reading data from December of 2022. And my understanding is that you then feed things like timed exploitation after disclosure, CVSS severity, um, whether or not something is a popular piece of technology, things like that, and you feed that into XGBoost, which is a really popular machine learning model, uses a gradient boosted tree model, which is kind of like hundreds of different decision trees. Um,
Yeah.
is that still kind of like, are you still using the same model? Have you changed kind of what parameters you look at when calculating the score? Kind of what's a little bit of the under the hood differences between the old version and new version?
Yeah. So it's the same algorithm, same XGBoost, and XGBoost is used to initially train the model, right? Like it's used to basically calculate the weights of all of these features under the hood, right? Like which ones are actually predictive, which ones are may decrease scores and all that. And so uh, it's the same algorithm. And I think the only difference is like there's a couple of differences, right? They've added Vulncheck Kev, which is a big feature
Yeah.
Hmm.
of understanding, or at least incorporating that into the scoring,
Mhm.
as well as there's an updated GitHub exploitation model, which is sort of like a sub model
Mhm.
of of EPSS where they have they're basically giving a confidence score of like, does this GitHub repository or this file in this GitHub repository reflect an actual CVE exploit, and all that. And then also GitHub popularity metrics is another submodel that is sort of feeding into EPSS.
Tell me about this GitHub popularity metrics. That sounds spicy.
Right?
That's so like yeah. There are again a ton of, I think there's like 1,500 features if I
Uh-huh.
recall correctly, and so this is sort of like adding that in.
Right.
And I don't necessarily, I couldn't necessarily tell you how that works, but
Hmm.
I know that it is being incorporated and has impact into pr exploit prediction.
Sure.
Um, so yeah.
Very cool stuff. Thank you for the explanation.
So, like I don't want anyone to go away from this say thinking like, oh, well, there's not a whole lot of difference between V4 and V5, so who cares? Like it was what I mean is the spikiness
Yeah.
that we saw between 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 just kind of was absent there, but it doesn't mean that like things won't be changing from here on out, right? Like there will be like
Right.
as time goes on, you should
Uh,
see more and more separation between V4 and V. So, like comparing a score from today to, last week, not a ton of change. Probably comparing, I would expect, comparing a score from like 6 months from now, several 30-day cycles from now to last week,
yeah.
I would expect to see some differences there, especially in
Yeah.
the.
And so one thing to sort of remember, and the way that I sort of frame this, right, is EPSS is sort of I like to frame it as an adversary behavior model, right?
Mhm.
Like we don't necessarily care about what the features are, what the features are. We care about which features are predictive, right? Like,
Right.
and
Mhm.
we want to be able to model as or adversary behavior over time
Mhm.
temporally, because it does change over time, right? And so we do, like, the model updates are, in my opinion, a good thing, even if they are spiky, right? Like from version 3 to version 4,
Mhm.
because version 3 was out for 2 years,
Yeah.
right? And then version 4 picked up from where that left off, and yes, a lot of things probably changed in those 2 years, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so um, yeah, like I sort of view it in that lens, and I don't necessarily like get upset when things are spiking or things are changing. I'm more
Sure.
so thinking about, oh, well, today this changed, right? And this is a new signal that we need to account for,
Mhm.
Right.
because as we know, vulnerability arrival and all that, those things are changing rapidly,
Right.
and if anything, we'd want to see model updates quicker and sooner.
Right. And it's a predictive model, so we have to remember that things might swing depending on if things don't match their prediction. A meteorologist will be wrong sometimes, so that's because they're working with a
Hmm.
massive predictive model. In the same way,
Hmm.
EPSS, something might spike or it might just stay linear, and then a big thing happens, shows up in the news, gets a
Yep.
CVSS 10, and suddenly all the predictions have changed.
Right. Again,
For,
like
for,
yeah, it's temporal, right? So like this stuff is happening on a daily basis. Those pipelines of data ingestion are running and then being fed into that algorithm that's been pre sort of trained with
Mhm.
those values for the in the decision tree. And so yeah, you'll see things change over time. Scores go up, scores go down, right, when things change as well, which is always interesting to see. Um, but yeah, like that's sort of how I frame it is, this is reality.
Right.
We live day to
Mhm.
day, like it's going to change. So
And
And
oh, sorry, Todd.
I apology accepted. The thing I care the most about with EPSS and seems to be pretty neat is, and this is like a super simplification, is I care a lot about the changes. I care about those changes, not
mhm.
from model to model, but from day to day, right? Like
Sure.
when something like I
Yeah.
think it's probably healthy to check in on EPS. Like if you're in this industry, you're in a SOC, you want to watch for vulnerabilities, for hotness or whatever, like an easy, for me anyway, early predictor of like, what do I have to pay attention to today,
Mhm.
is what changed from yesterday.
Yes.
And like, yeah, and you can expand that out. You can adjust to taste, right? Like change over the last 3 days, change over the last week, something that probably not much more than that, I would say. But like it's super fun for me, right? To, wake up, get coffee, this is fun. I'm a huge nerd. Wake up, get coffee, check EPSS scored deltas from yesterday, and say like, oh,
Yeah.
this one popped up, this one popped up, and then do a little mystery solving of like, I wonder why.
Right.
And often the answer is like, oh, a nuclei template dropped that mentioned this,
Mhm.
Metasploit module dropped that mentioned this. New on the Kev tends to bump a score that day. So
Hmm.
I guess the fun part is when it's not one of those three things.
Yeah.
Right.
Now we've got a mystery on our hands.
Yeah.
I love
Come on,
How do we go? How do
Scooby
we go
Gang.
investigate what the
Pretty
model did?
fun.
Because
And this is a way that I use EPSS, but you gave, I believe, an entire talk at VulnCon about how you use EPS. And so I'd love to get, the cliff notes of that. I'm sorry,
yeah.
cliff notes of that, of that talk, and how would you recommend somebody who has a real job and works in defense for real, like IT defense, how
Wait,
should they be using EPSS?
are you telling me podcasting isn't a real job?
It is definitely not a real job.
Yeah, so I mean, so I'll just preface this. Like one of the coolest
Mhm.
things about EPSS, right, is it's an actual probability that you can perform math on. Like we
Mhm.
can actually do valid math versus whatever math is happening in CVSS. But
Yes.
the cool thing about probability is like you can start, I started learning about probability theory and going down the road of like how do you use all this stuff. And so that sort of led me into, what I presented at VulnCon and I gave a similar talk at Syracon the week after.
Mhm.
Um, and essentially, I want to be able to use EPSS as it's a global model of think of the weather, right? Like it's the entire
Yeah.
country's weather
It's how
pattern, right?
attacky the internet is feeling today.
Right, right. But I live on the East Coast in the Mid-Atlantic and I want to know the weather here,
Mhm.
right? And be able to take action based on that. And so what I did for what I've been working on for roughly the past 2 years is ways to use EPSS into like a higher level sort of risk model that's local to your environment.
Mhm.
Um, So what I've been doing is combining EPSS scores at the asset level, right? Like there's this method in probability theory where you can calculate the probability that at least one of these events happens, right? And so
Sure.
you can do this for an asset, right? Like, okay, what's the probability that at least one CVE on this asset will be exploited in the wild somewhere, right? And then using Bayesian statistics Bayes theorem, you can then pull in things like control effectiveness and start measuring that and all the nuances that come with that. And if you are able to perform that and then have, okay, this control prevents exploitation this amount of time, it's a very generalization. It's not specific, it's not precise, but like you can then update that for the asset level and say like, okay, this asset has this number of CVEs on it with these
Mhm.
scores, and it has this control or these controls on it, and this is how effective they are. What is my, residual or leftover sort of exploit probability for that specific asset, right? And then joining that with like a bunch of qualitative data is really interesting too, right? I think I've written a couple of blogs about this too, but if you join that with um, you know, qualitative asset data, you can see like where the riskiest assets live in your environment from a vulnerability perspective, or where the, um, you know, like by department or by, what kind of data is on these assets. Like it's really interesting to sort of get into those views. And at least that's like a start into, all of that. And then
Mhm.
if you take that a step further, it gets sort of into like risk quantification, right? Like you can go down the road of, okay, can we go all the way up to incident likelihood from exploitation? Can we go all the way up to material incident likelihood for
Mhm.
exploitation? Can we go all the way up to material loss, right? Like and do the whole fair thing where we can get a loss exceedance curve that's EPSS based and sort of built from the ground up with your local telemetry, which is super interesting, right? I mean, there's a lot of caveats and a lot of assumptions you have to make there, but it is, there is a path there, and it's only, I think, a matter of time before, the industry starts moving in that direction, based
Right.
on, especially with the its current state of vulnerability arrival.
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. And on a, sort of a lower level practitioner standpoint, if you're like a SOC analyst and you have to manage alerts, one thing that you can do is if you have filtering and you have it ranked by EPSS score, then you could say, oh, this vulnerability like really likely to cause serious damage sometime in the near future, and I see someone jiggling the doorknobs for it. That could then make you want to look at that first in your alert triage before you go and look at, say, another WordPress exploit when you don't have a WordPress website, things like
Sure.
that.
right.
We have a question in chat. If you have an answer for that, Alan asks, how much value does use of PCAP data add in the EPSS process, i.e., or e.g., confirmation of attack paths?
So, I will say this, as so BPSS is based off of detection, like basically vulnerability exploit detections, right? And those are usually PCAPs, or they can be other things, right? But like in PCAPs, you can deduce that. And so a lot of the detection data is, or the detection data of exploit activity is the baseline for what is likely to happen, right? And
Mhm.
so
Right.
I would say it's fundamental in the EPSS process. We without sort of PCAP data or any sort of raw, logging data where we can have detection engineering or detection signatures created to actually detect exploitation activity. There really wouldn't be an EPSS, right? Like there
Right.
has to be some sort of um, you know, like state of the truth of like what we're trying to actually model, right? And so
Hmm.
we're trying to model that exploitation activity, which is sourced from things like PCAPs, things like any other detection logic. So
Interesting. And one question that I have is EPSS is currently heavily based on CVEs. Um, Globally, there are other systems other than CVE. Have you heard of any
Bite your
projects
tongue.
trying?
How dare you?
Have you heard of any projects that are trying to do an EPSS but based on, say, CNVD or EUVD and
yeah,
some of these other vulnerability categories?
yeah. There's nothing limiting the like. There's no reason why we couldn't do things other than CVE ID, but the CVE is sort of like that marker that all detection logic is sort of based on, right?
Mm,
And it's like universal across. I mean, it's not universal, right? But like that is the probably the biggest repository of vulnerability information and also things mapped back to it, right? And so that's essentially why it's based off of CVE, but there's nothing like fundamentally limiting it to expanding into other areas as long as we're able to determine, exploit detection based off of this other identifier versus a CVE, and then model that as well. So there's, yeah, it's not necessarily like, just because it's CVE, right? It's more so that's an opportunity to prove out that this model works. And as long as we, sort of build out features for other vulnerability repositories where we can map detections of exploitation activity back to them, there's no, like, we can do that, right? So.
Very cool. We have a question from chat from Ola Nordstrom asking, how does EPSS account for availability requirements? That's a huge deal, especially in like large OT environments. And then also, does it account for if, say, there's a library with a vulnerable function, but the product using that library isn't calling that vulnerable function. Does that come into account?
Yeah, so like reachability, exploitability. Um, I I don't think so. I don't think it's in there, and I would love to be corrected. But as one of the people who knows this stuff pretty well, I can confidently say I'm pretty sure that's not in there. That's more of like a local environment sort of caveat, especially
Mm,
for reachability, or however you define reachability and exploitability. I know people have different definitions, and they can be interchangeable. But essentially, like, can you exploit the code? Can the exploit actually happen? Right. Um, I think the only thing I would say to that is might be inherent in the model. Like if you're not seeing exploitation detection activity for that
mhm,
thing, then you probably like you won't be seeing that in the model output, right? And so if it's not
Right.
actually exploitable in practice, in the data it's being trained on, then it's not going to translate to oh, this is likely to be exploited, right? So that
right.
might be an inherent feature. But specifically for your local environment, that's where some of the research that I've been doing with control effectiveness and sort of filtering based off of reachability or filtering based off of exploitability comes into play. Because if you can just say, like, yeah, I don't really care about this because it's not reachable, I would just discard it completely, right? It's just not
Right.
part of your risk model anymore because it's not actually valid.
That makes
Um,
sense. And do you
I,
know if any like security compliances are using EPSS as part of their assessment?
you said EPSS compliance,
Yeah,
or
like if
if
sorry.
there's
someone's
like a
going,
compliance regime, like does
yeah, like
Yeah.
PCI care about EPSS?
I don't think
My
so.
guess is
Like
no.
that, yeah, like it's not encoded into any
Yeah,
compliance framework anywhere. But what is encoded into a lot of compliance frameworks is risk.
yeah.
And EPSS is a really, really good way to sort of perform risk modeling or risk management because it is one half of that, right? It's the
Mhm.
likelihood factor of this event happening. And so if you really dive deep into that, it's relatively compatible with I would say most compliance, if not all compliance frameworks that are dealing with cybersecurity or cybersecurity risk. And so yeah, I think it's not necessarily encoded, I would say, but it's compatible, right? Like and we've
Yeah,
talked about this in the SIG as well. So
yeah. As always, EPSS is merely a probability. It's not a
yeah,
guarantee.
yeah,
Um, which makes it touchy for compliance folks who
yep,
really like binary
yeah.
checkboxes. But like I think you're onto something with EPSS, obviously. I care about EPSS. I think EPSS is cool. Um, but the probability-ness of it is I like working it into your risk modeling, right?
Yeah.
But unlike CVE, which is CVE is not CVE, right? Like
Yeah.
CVE present or absent, which feels like a binary choice, but is it? These kinds of things, and this is why like CVE is baked into like a lot of compliance and regulations, some laws sometimes.
You mean
Uh,
CVSS, right, Todd?
no, I mean
No.
CVE. I mean
CVE? Okay.
CVE 2026, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
CVSS2, or I'm sorry, CVSS as well,
Yeah.
is mentioned in some regulations.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think to those regulations' detriment. Um,
Yeah.
I also like CV. I like certain parts of CVSS.
Yeah.
I kind of hate the number at the end because it's not, as you had mentioned, low these 14 minutes ago. It looks like a number.
It's
It
not.
is not a mathy number. I can't like add up and average a bunch of CVSS scores to get
And
like
please don't.
no, no, you're breaking it. Um, I would argue though that like if it's the philosophical argument of like what is a vulnerability. If it is not exploitable, is it a vulnerability? I mean, I am orthodox in this. It's hard no. Like it is not a vulner. If nothing can happen to exploit that
Yeah.
vulnerable bit of code,
Yeah.
then no, it's not a vulnerability. It is as if it were not there at all. So the tree does not make a sound. Like, and I
Right.
am very hard into that camp.
I
Uh, which is where like a lot of the scanners and especially compliance-driven scanning will fall over, right? Because like there are CVEs for protocols, there are CVEs for
Right.
libraries, and CVEs for libraries tend to be, in fact, must be some particular function in that library. And if that
Right.
function is not wired up, not
Right.
present
Right.
in any practical way. And yet here we are. We still fight over this every day.
Yeah.
So I would say that like a tool in your arsenal, right, to argue with your boss whether or not like you should be spending time on chasing some particular CVE is something like EPSS. You can say, well, like, look, I mean, no, there's no zero chances in life. But like in this case, like we have the CVE, yeah, Linux kernel, once again, it's one of, a couple dozen every day. But there is no path to, I can tell you that there's no path to this code. And also the internet seems to think so as well.
Right.
Because it's coming in at like very sub 0.0005%, let's say. I think it's
Yeah.
four, yeah, it's
Right.
four decimals of precision, which I enjoy quite a bit.
I
Um,
yeah, I've run into a few where yeah, it's like a source code analysis and they're like, well, if this function was used in this way, it could be vulnerable. It's like, okay, but is the function used in that way?
but is it?
We
Yeah.
But
have
is
another
it?
we have a question from Mario in chat wondering if there's a correlation between EPSS score and if something is in CISA Kev. So, for example, if something has an EPSS score over like, zero point 0.4 or whatever, do you know if that makes it de facto in Kev? And if something shows up in Kev, does that also reflect in like de facto like minimum score on EPSS?
Yeah, so the answer is
Is it
no
probably?
asterisk.
Is it probably?
Probably. So yeah, Kev, so SysAkev and now Vulncheck Kev are included in the actual model, and by included I mean like it's a binary, right? Like is it on the
Right,
Kev or not, right? And that is then used as a feature in that decision tree to sort of change the likelihood that's resulting from, but it also interacts with all the other features that are in that tree, right? So you could have it be on the SysAkev or the Volncheck Kev, but it doesn't have any references or anything in the CVE record, and so it actually goes down because it goes onto the Kev or something like that, right? And
right,
so like yes, there is a relationship, but it's not one that's intuitive, right? Like we're
And
sort
it's not
of
one to one. And it's not
right,
like, oh, is on Kev today, even though it's
right,
4 years old, that
right,
you're not guaranteed you're like plus 20, 30% bump or whatever.
right.
Often happens. Um,
Sure. Yeah.
because I see it every day.
Yeah. I mean,
But
the
not
recency of
guaranteed.
yeah, recency of Kev addition. I don't know if that's an explicit feature, but I would assume that, that is a relatively um high signal, right? Like,
Yeah.
right,
there is signal there, like, hey, something happened over here, but it's like that's like also like saying, there's a storm, and EPSS is sort of modeling the entire storm, and Kev is like, there's a lightning strike right here, and it
Mhm.
happened, right? And so it's like, yes, that's great, and lightning strikes happen, but we also want to continue to model the entire storm as well. Um, what was the other part of that question? Sorry. Um,
No, I think you answered it. It was just on whether
yeah.
EPSS scores are related to Kev and vice versa.
Uh-huh.
So like, um, yeah,
Vice versa seems unlikely.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm relatively positive Kev does not use EPSS as an indicator of actual exploitation activity. I know there was an
Oh yeah,
effort,
no.
for Lev, like likely exploited
There
vulnerabilities
is.
Hmm.
and all of that, and that's an interesting thing to unpack, right?
Mhm.
But um, that's also temporal, and that can also, be interpreted different ways.
Right.
Um, and so the only thing I would say is like, in the talk that I gave, there is, like the reality of the vulnerability ecosystem, like Kev is a thing, right? Like we should
Hmm.
be accounting for those things in a local risk model.
Right.
And based on like how you sort of view that, like I wouldn't necessarily say it's a good practice, but like if you want to override things like an EPSS score because it's on the Kev and you want to, prioritize it, like go for it. Like that is 100% within your prerogative to do.
It's
Cool. Hey, Bree, you want to bring up our slides here again? Because
yeah, my
we
pleasure.
can look at our new very scary agentic adversary and talk
Yes.
about the dawn of AI. And so like but yeah, see, there we go. Ooh, spooky. This is something that we've been talking about here at runZero for a couple weeks now, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, of like, oh dang, like we've definitely drank the Kool-Aid on OMG, vulnerabilities are it's gonna be rain and vulns, hallelujah. And we have some worries about this.
Yeah.
Does this have like an impact on EPSS? Specifically, since because EPSS uses CVE as a primary key, there are two outcomes we're staring down here now, right? One is loads of more CVEs, and like orders of magnitude more,
Mhm.
versus loads of vulnerabilities that never hit the CVE even radar. And so therefore, does EPSS become irrelevant and we all go home and just cower?
Yeah, couple of things. So what you're describing is like an increase in vulnerability arrival rates is how I've been describing it, right? Like
Sure. Yeah,
arrival
yeah, yeah.
rates
Yeah, the vulns have always been there. We're
right,
discovering faster.
known vulnerabilities, right?
Right.
The arrival rate of known vulnerabilities is going up, right? Like we see, and whether or not it has a CVE, whatever, right? But yeah, specifically for EPSS, like it's wholly dependent on the CVE ecosystem, right? And so as long as the CVE ecosystem is able to sort of account for or compensate for that volume of arrival, I don't think EPSS is actually going to be negatively effective. If anything, I would put more weight into using it because
Mhm.
the human triage at that point is like almost impossible, right? Like I think it's impossible today. Like we can't necessarily triage um, every single vulnerability that's coming out of the CVE database all the time.
Mhm.
And EPSS is a really handy tool for sort of deducing at least a portion of the risk of that CVE, right?
Cool.
Um, and it's taking into account, way more features than humans can sort of even comprehend, right? And so it's just
Right.
like, yeah, we're sort of fighting it already with machine learning, right?
Mhm.
And as for the flip side of that, like if the CVE ecosystem, is not able to handle that load, I think it, sort of reverts back to the Wild West, right? Like I really don't know what's going to happen if that does happen, other than the default that usually people go to is patch all the things, right?
Yeah, just
And
patch.
it's like,
How hard can
yeah,
it
just patch, right? Just patch.
be? Stop being
I
so
would,
lazy and just patch.
yeah, I mean, it really sort of goes into like, can you develop a local risk model or threat model that does not include a likelihood of exploitation, but more so it is like, more like a threat model, right? Like, are you
Mhm.
able to, sort of go that route and move VM into at least a human understandable threat model, or even if you want to get fancy, just start doing, local modeling.
Sure.
So
And
Right.
that just a couple weeks ago, CISA, our favorite agency, released BOD 2604, and this is the binding operational directive that replaces BOD. See, it's already dead to me. I don't even remember what it is anymore. BOD 2201. I'm kidding.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, totally.
it's that is the binding operational directive that created
Hmm.
the KEV, and 2604 injected some really aggressive timelines,
Yeah,
for turning out patches.
yeah,
So, I mean, I bring that up because this is part and parcel with this. Certainly, this is a response to, vulnerability. Intelligence itself is going up and to the right. Discovering vulnerability is going up to the right. I would
Yeah.
argue our AI friends are also writing bugs at a much faster rate than humans can.
Right.
So,
Bold of you to call them
Yes.
friends.
yeah, me and Roka's Basilisk, we're like this.
Yeah.
Go ahead and look
Still,
up Roka's Basilisk, everyone, and you're welcome for being doomed.
it's just Pascal's wager for AI people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. From my vantage point, what I've been seeing with
Wait a minute. Vol maxing, please, Bill. Can we not?
absolutely not. And we're especially not having a scoreboard for that.
No.
Yeah. What I've seen so far from it is not really like AI agents bringing out, the next Eternal Blue. There is a DEF CON talk that says that they've used an AI agent to find a novel way of web exploitation. I'll be interested to see what that talk says and what comes out of it. But prior to that, all that I've seen so far is bots kind of being fast at doing the same things we were already doing, being kind of like fuzzers. What I have seen that is concerning to me is the amount of alert fatigue that people's AI
Yeah.
bots can give project maintainers. If you're an open source maintainer for,
Also up and to the
say,
right, you know?
Yeah.
if you're maintaining something that a lot of people use, and then suddenly you're getting a whole bunch of AI submitted vulns that are completely fake or they're entirely theoretical, you can't recreate them, then it's going to make it a lot harder if someone finds something that's really interesting and an actual vulnerability, but it's kind of a weird, non-intuitive vulnerability that might get lost in the sea of people trying to get like really easy bug bounties with their AI bots.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and they're in a race with every other AI
Yeah.
using person. Like we know now, like we've seen it in the last couple of months. Repeats are up. Anyway, uh, re, uh, but let's talk about real vulns, shall we?
Yes.
Well, hey, Stephen, thank you so much for this, I think, incredibly insightful
Yeah.
view into EPSS. EPSS is a weird corner of vulnerability management. It's actually less of a weird corner. It's a bigger room now. Like more and more people are using it, are aware of it. If you're not already using EPSS in some way, go check out Steven's talk at VulnCon. Don't worry, I have a link to a totally different VulnCon talk coming up in the next section. You are, of course, welcome to hang out. Most people
Yes.
do. I don't think anyone drops. So if you have any opinions
No
on
pressure,
these
but you will be
bugs,
the first.
No,
if you want to hit,
I'm
yeah,
here. I'm here for it.
you're
So
here. All
let's go.
right, dope. Let's move on. Bri, next slide, please, to the
Hmm.
rapid responses of interest.
That
This is
emoji is not a lasso.
it is a lasso. It may be prayer beads. Either way,
We're all
still
praying.
valuable.
Yeah.
Today, this is the part of the show where we talk about the vulnerabilities that caught our attention, so much so that we released rapid responses on them. runZero rapid responses tend to be alerts that pop up in people who use runZero in their console. And if you happen to also have it in your environment, we give you a helpful nag mail saying, hey, you have this thing, you should look. First out of the gate, looks like it's our friends at Avanti.
All
Uh,
right.
Bree, you did the book report homework on this one.
Yeah, I've done a little homework on it. So,
Next
the
slide.
yep. Yeah, so the other day, Matthew, incredibly smart guy if you ever get a chance to talk to him, he wrote a blog post and a rapid response for
Mhm.
Avanti Sentry having a CVSS 10.0
Oh no, it's the worst kind.
unauthenticated. It is the worst kind. Um, in order to kind of explain how we got there, I just kind of want to give a little bit of context. Todd, have you ever inherited a legacy code base and asked to maintain it?
Why, yes, I have, Bree.
Has it been
It
easy?
is not.
Not. So let me talk a little bit about how Sentry was formed
Mhm,
and why we're running into a little bit of what seems like a stepping on a rake situation. Avanti Sentry is not initially an Avanti product. It
mhm.
is Avanti Mobile Iron Sentry.
Hmm.
The Mobile Iron is the company that made it.
Hmm.
They are an old school mobile security company.
They
They were
sure
formed
are.
in 2007 by a Jay Meshri and Suresh Bachu. And
Mhm.
I have to have a quick aside.
Okay. Better be
Suresh
quick.
Bachu, incredibly searchable name. You look
Okay.
up Suresh Bachu, you're gonna get Suresh Bachu, right? Ajay, a little bit different. If you look him up, you're going to get two people that they are not him. One is Ajay Meshri, who is a self-help YouTuber, not the same guy. You're also going to get Ajay Meshri Teni, who is a disgraced former politician, also not the guy. I cannot imagine what his email inbox has got to look like because if you look up his name, you the first things you get is disgraced former politician, self-help guru, guy who made mobile iron. Terrible SEO.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, they saw the
Sure.
iPhone and they're like, we should probably secure this. So Mobile Iron was made originally for Windows phones, iPhones, and Symbian OS phones. And then
Dope.
they kept doing the thing. They reached an IPO in 2014, if I remember correctly. And after ups and downs as a company is wont to do, they reached a nice corner of doing mobile device management, mobile device security. And in
Mhm.
2020, they got acquired by Avanti.
Right.
That is all of the context you need for why something might be a strange jar file that doesn't behave the way you would expect it to, because 6 years is like 30 years in startup years, but
Mhm.
not enough time to like really polish a legacy code base that you've inherited. I don't envy the people at Avanti, and I don't envy the people at Mobile Iron.
Yeah.
So basically, what happened is there is a login page for Avanti,
Hmm.
and you are supposed to use that to log in before you then go into your Sentry stuff and you change configs. What happened was you could write, you could send a command directly to a Sentry endpoint. And if you configured it just right, or in the body of the HTTP request, you had an XML file that had a command execution, and then you specifically knew the exact right path to exploit, you could make it do basically anything. And that was quickly patched. So now if you're unauthenticated and you try to hit that endpoint, it 302 redirects you to the login screen. And when you try to send that command execution, then it actually, the Java source code will force it to look a specific way and use only very normal commands.
Hmm.
And they've added additional security outside of the Java file to where it will automatically detect and drop anything that seems too generic or too like information disclosure E.
Hmm.
Um, the problem is that there is also an issue where you can make your own admin account.
Sure.
So you have your pre-auth RCE, but it's okay because now you have to be auth, except that you can also make an admin account so that you're auth. It
Hmm.
is a real, like, you stepped on a rake, you put the rake down, you took another step, and there's just another rake right in front of you.
Oh
Not
no.
great. They seem to have patched it. If you haven't patched your Avanti Sentry endpoints, you should do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
And these guys tend to hang out on the internet, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
so what it is Avanti Sentry is a mobile device like gateway because everyone knows managers have work Slack on their phone. It's
Mhm.
how they are. Sorry, Todd. Um, and Mobile Iron solved the problem of what happens if like your BlackBerry needs to talk to official work documents and you're in a cafe or whatever. So basically, Sentry is a way for you to talk to your company's internal things through an encrypted tunnel, kind of like a VPN,
Mhm.
but only specifically for your work mobile devices. And then it connects with endpoint security things so that if anything fishy is going on, those two things will detect it and hopefully stop you from doing the thing. It's
It's
based
amazing.
entirely on making sure that everyone is doing things the right way and it's
Yeah.
configured the right way and you are totally up to date. If you're not up to date, you got 10 seconds. You should probably update. That's about what I've got for Avanti.
And
Again,
that's the
Patch.
story on Avanti Century.
Watchtower has a really good write-up on it as well.
They
Of
do.
course, read ours first. I'm
Yeah,
like
of course.
contractually obligated to tell you to read ours first, but then read the
Why not?
Watchtower one because they've got a lot of details. They do source code analysis. They have a meme in the middle of it because it's
Because
Watchtower.
it's
Big
Watchtower.
fan.
Yes.
Big fan.
All right. Thank you. Next slide, if you please. Thank you. Sorry about my alerts. My computer is being lame and ignoring my focus settings. So cool. The checkpoint bug. This is checkpoint. This was an issue around checkpoint VPNs. Authentication. This is CVE 2026-50751. The issue is pretty interesting to me because it is a problem in their implementation of IKE v1, which is Internet Key Exchange version 1, and how certificates are compared, and when you're doing like you're stepping through the auth process, oops, turns out you didn't actually need that password at all. Anyone could log in without a password. It was rad. Cool bug. Interestingly enough, for me, the interesting part is the bug is not uses Ike v1 because Ike v1 is deprecated. It has been deprecated since 2023, so about 3 years, a little over 3 years of getting no love, no updates. This was a standard that was designed and implemented in the late 20th century, which is a fun way to say 1998. Uh, and so everything in there seemed like a good idea at the time. There are many other, but this is interesting to me because like while the IKE v1 protocol standard itself has been deprecated, which rarely happens, but it was deprecated by IETF. Like Telnet is not deprecated. Like it is still around. You can still make Telnet things and not feel super guilty about it. But yeah, this thing is old sauce. You do not want it running. Like my advice to you is A, yes, obviously patch your things. B, don't configure Ike v1 anymore. I understand, but my legacy clients, right? They're also legacy. There needs to be like this is me beating on my end of life, discipline drum. I think end of life is huge, huge, huge problem, rivaling the problem of the presence of vulnerabilities. Precisely because like oftentimes bugs in end of life stuff, be they operating systems, hardware, protocols, um, will go unreported typically. This is also kind of unusual, right? Because it is a bug in an old protocol that everyone said back in 2023, no one is going to work on this anymore. I promise you, there will never be fixes. And that is true. There will never be a fix to V1 because it's V1, right? It's frozen time. Use like V2. There are many other problems with like V1. Don't use it. Those problems, by the way, typically are things like distributed, like the big one for me is the amplification effects you get with Ike v1. So
Hmm.
if you are offering an Ike v1 service on the internet, you're also a bad neighbor. Like you're
Very
holding
loud.
loud parties and no one likes you. So please stop it. And then the other issue, next slide, please, that leapt out at me, and we just have a few minutes left, but that's okay. It's how to find light LLM instances on your network. Another Matthew Kino special. Light LLM. The main reason why I wanted to talk about this is because it has LLM in the name. For whatever reason, I really do like talking about AI bugs. And by AI bugs, I mean bugs in AI and AI adjacent software. Um, these are fairly pedestrian bugs on their own. There's three of them. There's like a SQL injection in there. There's a server-side template injection in there, and then command injection. So inject all the
Hmm.
things, right? And LightLLM, the purpose of this software, it's a proxy. LightLLM proxy is, I think, the full name. It's a proxy where you say like, hey, I want to talk to any arbitrary LLM, any arbitrary model, and I don't want to learn everyone's syntax. And this basically just lets you do it. Um, the thing that I guess I like the most about these, but and I say like, I know I'm broken, is that surely. the people working on this. And it's an open source project, and they're all giving up their time for free, all that, right? But surely they're also using AI, right,
Oh yeah.
for their code, right? Like they're not. I don't think they're like totally hands off. I'm just like slopifying everything. I don't think they're doing that, but I do think they're getting help, right? They're probably hitting the like, hey, Copilot, review this for me, right? And the fact that this gets out the door, like tells me that there's a lot of bug space to be found, right? Like to that we have not yet plumbed. And so if you happen to be using Line LLM because you're one of these folks that like to talk to multiple models and don't want to like change your plumbing, great, go for it, use it. You must keep up on the patches, right? Just, even over here too in AI land. And it reminds me, I dropped a link in the chat to John Spring's VulnCon talk, part of the VulnCon playlist, so you can also find Stephen on there. Majano Springs talk, which is entitled AI Systems Are Software Systems. And so it's all about, AI bugs in AI systems, many of
Yeah.
which we don't really need a whole new classification system for because in the end, they're all software. It's a really good talk. I strongly urge you to close this window right now and go over and talk and watch that one.
Please don't.
And it is a really good talk. All you got to do is Google for like Jono, Jono, Jono Spring, VulnCon, AI
Yeah.
systems or software system. You'll find it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I went up against him at the same time slot. So
Oh,
Oh,
so if
I
you
love
saw
that.
Steven live, you missed this one.
Now
I
you
was
can
like,
see the
great,
other half.
Uh-huh.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, then you're welcome, Steven. You should go watch this one.
Yeah.
It is good. It's really good. John is like delightful and charming and everything.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he is.
And I think that's it. Bree, anything leaping out in the chat for you to address? Otherwise, hit the glide if you please.
Oh, seen some talk. I had to do my thing where I talk about how the Zune was actually a pretty good MP3 player.
Okay, yes.
But yeah, Ola gave some context on mobile iron work on MDM and how kind of they started shifting focus because the operating system started actually having security measures built in, which is always good to see. Hopefully we see that with these LLM things having security measures built in sooner rather
Yep.
than later. But that's all that I got. Steven, do you have anything?
Yep. Yeah. Parting words,
No, this
Stephen. Nothing.
well, no, if you're interested in learning more about EPSS, please come join the SIG. I wish I never had this link handy, but if you search for EPSS SIG, there's a way to request to join. Those
Yep.
requests come right to me, and I usually either review them or I have my good friend Claude co-work review them for me, and then tell me whether or not you're trustworthy. So you are coming in through an AI
Mhm.
filter.
Does Claude say that I'm trustworthy?
I well, if you come join the SIG, I'll let you know. um,
Well,
yeah.
that's great. Great advice. If you care about APSS, drop by the SIG. It's a friendly bunch and pretty
Hmm.
fun. In other news, runZero Hour next time will be July 15th. We could not do this without our good friend Kristen, who is our producer. He has been behind the scenes the whole time. He organizes a lot of this stuff, helps out a lot with the slides, and just is all around hoopy frood. So thank you so much, Kristen. Thank you to you, Stephen, for gracing us with your presence.
Yep.
I'm a nerd for this kind of thing, and you're my kind of nerd, my dude. So that's great. And
Well,
thank you, Bree, first time host, long time guest. Uh, maybe if you come on like three more times, Stephen, then we can unseat Bree.
well,
But
thanks
yeah,
for
thanks
having
so
me.
much, everybody,
Yeah,
and
sure.
have a great rest of your day. And hello from the past if you're in the future. Bye.
Bye.